Hello, everybody. Welcome to Phil's Place. My name is Philip Clarke, and we are in episode 5. And I have a very, very good friend from high school, our days at Montour High School in the 1980s, Ms. Staci Summers.
Woohoo!
And hey, Staci, how you doing?
I'm great, Phil. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining. And I really cannot wait for you to start talking about your career and all of your journeys and all the great work that you have been doing for how many years now?
Oh, wow. Okay, let's see. Since 31 years.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay. So that
Yeah.
takes us back to 1994-ish.
Yep.
So who did you start with? Who was your first place of employment where you were doing this type of work? We'll get into the type of work
Well,
that you're doing, by
yeah.
the way.
So, okay, career that's a big word. I never really had what you would call a traditional career.
Right.
Um, my first trip internationally, so and only maybe I'd only ever flown on an airplane 3 times. Twice before I took this trip
Okay.
in 1994. But that trip was my first time outside the United States. And
Mhm.
when I was in college, I thought maybe I would apply to serve in the Peace Corps. And I think I just wasn't, I was not ready at that time in my life for a big overseas commitment that for a girl who'd never even been outside the United States. That was
Right. Sure.
so. During my years in college, I found out about this organization called Habitat for Humanity.
Huh?
And I found out that they had an international short-term overseas program called Global Village, which is still in existence today.
Right. Yes.
And it because it was just a 3-week commitment, I thought, well, I think I could handle that. And I really wanted to go to the most exotic sounding place on the which at the time was India.
Sure. Yeah.
So I took my first trip outside the United States all the way to India.
Oh my goodness.
Yep, and it was mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yep. Um, I know lots of people probably have talked to you about India. Have you been there?
I've not been to India yet. I
Okay.
would love to get to India at some point here. I have friends who've been to India. I have neighbors who are my
Mm,
friends that are from India,
yeah, sure.
and I've taught students at Duquesne University, my 8 years of teaching there, who
Right.
were from India and
Yeah.
other parts of the Middle East and South Asia, Southeast
Yeah.
Asia. So,
I would say it's very much an assault on all of your senses. So,
okay.
oh, the smells in the air, the taste of the food, the things that you're seeing and experiencing are like, whoa. um,
It
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
that would be and at the age of, I'm guessing, 23 for
I
you.
was at the time 23.
Okay. Okay. So, I think anytime we leave our comfort zone,
Yeah.
our own personal culture that we live, you find culture shock.
Mm,
And I don't want to define India as culture shock because you can have culture shock in England.
sure.
You can have culture shock at any of the Caribbean islands. So, do you recall you just talked about the smells and everything and the food. What was your like gut feeling when you landed when you were on the soil of the country India, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do have a lot of very vivid memories, even of this trip that I took so many years ago. I think partly because it was so unique.
Yeah,
Uh, actually, it's interesting you mentioned getting off the airplane because I remember landing in Mumbai, which was then called Bombay,
right.
and getting off the airplane and kind of this smell of like diesel. And you're like, oh, it kind of smells like cow dung and body odor, and, like, it was just like and I just kept thinking, "Oh, well, we're gonna go outside and it's gonna go away," and then you realize it's never these it's just never going away. It's kinda
Right.
just part of being in a country where over 1 billion people are living, and
Yes.
their
Yes.
cows, in many cases, are considered sacred and are not, they they kind of wander around.
Mhm.
And um yeah, so definitely that like from the word go, it was, wow, this is really different. And at that time there were no real American companies, or big international companies like today, McDonald's, Starbucks,
Yeah.
Coca-Cola did not have a presence in India. So
It wasn't westernized in the least bit.
no, and there was nothing that reminded me of home
Right.
full
Right.
time. I
So it was a full-blown experience where you're learning everything about what India is about that the Western society did not have at that time.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, in fact, I remember thinking, and I've written about this since, how the mind-blowing thing about the recognition that your life as you left it is going on exactly the same as it was, uh, back home while you are somewhere else. In other words, it's a little bit like maybe like being on like Mars or something. You know, you're just like, "Oh my gosh, the other parts of the world that I left behind, people are still doing all the things that I would be doing if I were there, and these people live so differently. How
Right.
how can that how can those 2 things exist on the same globe?" You know, that was really shocking.
And back then, we were talking earlier about today's technology,
Mm,
and how, the last time we saw each other was probably in the late 1980s, and who thought that we'd be doing these types of sessions today, through a laptop or through your smartphone. We didn't know what those things were back then. Maybe a laptop, sure, but not the smartphones, not the internet, not the technology that we use for remote meetings, those types of things. And I think all of us who were into the global society but didn't know anything about it, it was just this one big cloud of curiosity.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then you got to experience that firsthand.
yep.
And, so what was your purpose? What did you do in India?
Well, because I was part of this global village,
Mhm.
with Habitat for Humanity, we connected with, the local habitat team, on the ground, and we worked on a number of different housing projects. So we
Okay.
helped to build, homes, which is the mission of Habitat for Humanity, is that
Sure.
that
Yes.
everyone should have a decent, place to live. And so, yeah, that was pretty much our job. We were just kind of there helping out, building building houses.
And how many houses were built and for how many people in your team?
I
You
think
recall?
in 7 or 8 of us. It was not a very large team, and, we we started in, Mumbai, and so we worked in a community. Actually, another sort of really incredible experience was we we took the, public train from Victoria Station every day to this, what would be considered, a like a slum area,
Mhm.
uh, called Tana, and
Mhm.
took the train every day to get to our work site. So we
Yeah,
were
sure.
riding, all the Indians. And, I don't know about now, Phil, but, like, definitely back then, I was quite the anomaly there. I mean, I'm almost 6 feet tall. I
Right.
have pretty, light colored skin. My hair is blonde and long. And, at the age of whatever I was, 20, 23, I mean, people were just like, they would come to me, they would ask to touch my hair, they wanted to stand next to me to have their photograph taken, didn't
Yeah.
matter know who I was, and so I was quite a curiosity. So riding on that train every day to get out to the job site was like, it was me as it was for them, I think.
I've heard that people had those similar experiences in Japan a long
Yeah,
time ago,
yeah. They
So,
very
Americans who were
oh,
fair skinned, light
uh-huh.
haired,
And there aren't a lot.
tall,
Yeah,
you're not used to that type of human being
right.
in all these countries over there.
Yeah, because,
So
I
might see
mean,
it on TV and that's it.
right, right.
Right. So what was your takeaway when you were getting back on the plane to come back to the States? Do you remember your takeaways from that trip back then that resonate to the work that you've been doing throughout your career?
Well, I just knew that I didn't want it to be a singular experience.
Okay.
I think there was an awakening of, "Oh, I love this. I wanna continue to do this somehow." And I think from a much younger age, I had wanderlust, reading about places that seem so foreign. Actually, Japan was one of them. I've
Mhm.
never, visited Japan, but I would like to, and I just remember thinking like, "Wow, that's." I think also, actually, Phil, probably had to do with the fact that, do you remember Shogun and, like, David Carradine and
Yes. Sorry, that's my I don't know how to shut off my phone, um, to the point where I might just turn it off right now.
yeah,
But I'm not gonna edit this part out because I just don't care. We're at Phil's
apologies.
place right now, so phone's off, okay.
Yeah, so, Japan, yeah, I
Right,
remember having a little bit of, like, a fascination with a place that seems so entirely different, you know?
right.
Probably
When you
some
mentioned
of it
Shogun, are you
what?
talking about the restaurant Shogun that we had in
No,
Pittsburgh?
oh, the miniseries, the television miniseries, where
Oh, okay, okay.
it was be part, like, you tune in, like, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and, it was all about the samurai and, you know
Yeah, sure. Sure, no, I remember Shogun being on TV.
Mhm.
I have to say I probably didn't watch it, but I was watching Godzilla and Ultraman movies, so
Yeah,
the 1950s and 60s anime from back then,
right.
and, but, the only other area of culture that goes back to high school,
Mm.
um, would have been Mr. Hofficker's World Cultures class,
Yes. Yes.
where we had to know the states and capitals, the provinces and capitals in Canada, and we had to know the capitals of all the countries across the world. And,
Right.
and because that was so long ago, I don't remember exact content, you know, um, from all of his lessons and tests that we took, but
Uh,
those were the things I remember,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know. Um,
But we also had somebody taught a class called geography. Geography?
I don't remember that, but
I'm
yeah,
I don't, maybe that was middle school, but I just remember having a
it was
geo
middle school. Yeah, that was middle school.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that seems, like, so different, you know?
Right. I'll have another episode in the future where I found myself learning the states and the capitals going back to elementary school, and
Yeah.
how fascinated I was when my brothers, when they turned 13, got an encyclopedia set for their
Yeah,
13th birthday. And I happened to open a random, volume, probably the letter E, and then I open it in the middle and there's Europe, you
eh,
know, and there's a picture, black and white, of a church in Switzerland with snow over the place. I'm like, wow, that was really cool. But
yeah,
I'll get into that in the future,
yeah,
because I did fall in love with geography and everything way
mhm,
back then.
right.
But let's get back to, your whole entire tenure of going to these countries and doing these builds. What is the process now that you're at? It's called what, the Fuller Foundation,
The Fuller Center for
Fuller
How
Center. I'm sorry.
mhm. Yeah, so I lead
And
them as well.
I know that you have done numerous trips throughout your career, and over the past year or so, just on social media, I recall that you have been to Romania.
Mhm.
You have been to I mean, before we get into Tanzania, what were the other countries where you did your most recent builds?
This year, I did one in Uganda,
Mhm,
in Romania,
mhm.
Portugal, Indonesia, and then the last one was Tanzania.
Okay. Now, what is the process? How do is it these communities that reach out to the Fuller Center, or is it the Fuller Center doing the research on these towns in all these countries where, where these new houses are needed?
Yeah, so the headquarters for the organization is here in the United States, and both of the programs that I have most of my experience with, Habitats, Global Village, and the Fuller Center's program is called Global Builders. Uh, they they both employ a model where the teams are visiting a country uh, that has their own affiliate on the ground there. So, in other words, at some point, there was the need was recognized within a country, and a group of people formed. Maybe there was an existing nonprofit organization, and then they decided to partner with the Fuller Center to become, for example, the Fuller Center for Housing in Uganda. So
Okay.
they're their own organization, entirely run by Ugandans. So they have their own process for selecting the families that they think are candidates for the houses. And then, if a program has the capacity, both in manpower it, and geographically, I guess,
Mhm.
then they might be able to do. They might be a host program for teams. So my
Okay.
team up of volunteers, there might be from 10 to 20 people. So they would have to be able to help work out the logistics and the housing and food and transportation for teams to come from, say, North America to uh, bring money into their program and to also provide some of the volunteer labor to actually build the houses.
Okay.
It's
Wow.
very local. It's a very localized operation in every country that I visit. It's not. It's by no means a top down approach to development.
Okay, I see. I know that you have one coming up, that I just saw on your Facebook page. I believe is it Thailand?
Yeah. Yep. I have a team.
And aren't you looking for one more volunteer at this point?
Uh, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, my team
Okay.
might be full. It should be full, but
Okay.
yep.
Because I thought I had seen that there was a need for one more person, and I thought I'd use this opportunity, whenever this gets posted 2 days before Thanksgiving, that somebody will watch this and say, "Hey, maybe I can do this, and I'll apply." But this could be the case for future builds in other
Yeah.
countries.
Well, I'm sure I'll have other teams to fill, hopefully more next year as well. So that's always a possibility.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay. Now, even though I've been following the work that you've been doing over the past few years, what stood out, and this goes back to September, was when you were in Tanzania,
Mm,
and I lit up. I was commenting
mhm,
on your posts. I was telling you about, the fact that I had been to Tanzania,
mhm,
but we didn't get into the details of why we were in Tanzania and the purpose of us being in Tanzania.
mhm,
And I'll get into this one detail, um, of why we're there, why we were there whenever I explain this to you now. Um, when I worked at Duquesne University, it was December 2017.
mhm.
I was part of a team, a familiarization team that went to Tanzania. We landed in Kilimanjaro Airport, and we talked earlier about whenever you get off the plane,
Yeah.
you're on Indian soil. I looked over to 2 colleagues, and actually one of my colleagues is from Zimbabwe,
Okay.
um, but she was almost like coming back home to a
Yeah.
certain degree. But Michael and I, we had never been to Africa. We got the plane, we're standing on African soil, on Tanzanian soil, and I looked at him and said, "We made it. We're in Africa. We're in Tanzania." We were blown away as soon as we got off the plane.
Yeah.
Well, that's before we went and did customs at Kilimanjaro Airport, boarded our shuttle bus that took us to the Spirits and Guest Center in Arusha, where we stayed for a couple days. And
Right.
that was like late at night, and you're talking about almost an entire day of traveling to get there.
Right.
Pittsburgh to Atlanta, a layover in Atlanta, Atlanta to Amsterdam, a layover at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam, and
Yeah.
then, and these were all 8-hour flights, Atlanta to
Yeah.
Amsterdam, Amsterdam to Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
Um, it's pretty much an entire day of traveling,
Right.
there's no question about that. But the adrenaline was there, the excitement was there, and I actually do sleep well on a plane, so so traveling those long distances is not really an issue, but
Right.
I could still feel this euphoria of landing and being there.
Mm,
Then so the rest of the trip was the rest of the trip, but what we did was we built a month-long study abroad program in the month of May for any student at Duquesne University. They did not have to be in the sciences. It was sponsored by the science school at Duquesne University because we had an environmental science professor,
mm,
Plexides Chutio, and Dr. Michael Huster, who was a physics instructor.
yeah.
And he actually taught an astronomy class
Mm,
because, and you know this from being close to the equator, when you have a clear night, the stars really pop out.
yeah.
And even to the naked eye, it's amazing. But we had sent this high powered telescope and we were looking for an exact location, this one building right on the Indian Ocean,
Mm.
that we would set up the telescope so that the students can just get as clear of an image through the scope of the constellations of the stars of
Oh, this is because they
planets
were
you may
studying
see. What's that?
this is because they were studying astronomy?
Well, it was a class. These were 2 courses, each were 3 credits, and they were approved by administration
Right.
as part of their degree. And again, they didn't have to be science majors.
Mhm.
They could have been a music major. They could have
Right.
been a health sciences major. It really didn't matter, you know?
Mm.
So, um, so one of the takeaways while we were in Bagamoyo, I didn't know this history. Bagamoyo is a small fishing town right on the coast. And this is where the Spiritan Order, who owns Duquesne University,
Okay.
has had a strong presence since the late 1800s. Okay.
Mhm.
What Duquesne, not Duquesne, what the Spiritans did back then in the 1870s and 1880s is as part of their missionaries, part of spreading the Catholic faith and converting people to Catholicism, they actually posed as slave buyers.
Mm.
But what they did once they had access to these people was they educated them.
Mm.
They converted them to Catholicism and they were sent back into society so that they can work and not be human trafficked back then.
Wow.
They were working as slaves back then. It's a story that is not really told, only because the attitude of the Spiritans, from what I understand, is, well, that's just the work that we did. You know,
Right.
they're not there to brag about, their missionaries, their the mission of the Spiritans, those types of things. I was blown away. I had no idea, And then when we went to Zanzibar, we're in Stone Town, we actually had a tour of where they would keep the slaves before they were purchased
Oh, my.
and taken away.
Yeah.
And, they're in these, like, little holding cells that you can barely get into,
Oh,
and they
yeah.
stuffed as many people in as possible. And
Mm.
to think that people were doing that back then, not to mention sometimes the things that happen today,
Yeah.
what a sin.
Yep.
What an absolute sin. And it
Fair.
was sickening, it was disgusting to see because I was taking myself back in time in my
Right.
mind
Yeah.
of how these people were being treated.
Yep.
And then let's not forget about the fact that some of these people didn't make it.
Yeah.
They got sick, they passed away. Um, so and that was part of what was taught to the students, when they were there,
Yeah.
because everywhere we went was where we were taking the students as
Right.
part of their learning experience. Uh,
Well, you hit on something. It's one of the things I love about travel, and that is immersing yourself in a different world, sometimes a
yes,
different period, really, learning about history and people, through these types of places that you can visit, whether they're natural, or, architectural, museums sometimes, just all these unique environments, not to mention the human beings that you meet when you travel who
for
can
sure.
really open you up to helping you understand your world through their eyes or their world through their eyes, and to try to take off what we think we know and learn from others.
That's why I love to travel. it's a bonus when you see a landmark. Like if you're in Rome, okay, there's a Colosseum, you take a picture, but you get a selfie with it.
Yeah,
Fine, dandy, great. But you're there to learn about their culture.
yeah,
You're there to learn about their ways of living. You're there to understand that they speak a different language. You're there to understand that they have foods that we don't have here. Yes, we have Italian restaurants all over the place, but you're getting the real Italian food over there. And then when we were in a place like Tanzania, the cuisine, a lot of it was fish, rice and beans, vegetables, and we ate very well over there. But what it ties into with what you did in Tanzania is the fact that you were doing your build in a town, I think it was Moshi, right?
yeah, just
You were
around.
in Moshi, which is not that far away from Arusha. And when I caught on to what you were doing, that's when I told you about we had a nonprofit that was started at Duke University by students
Yeah.
called Pure Thirst. Okay.
Mhm. Mhm.
And they were going into, they may have actually gone into Moshi, if I recall correctly. Don't quote me on that.
Mhm.
But they were there to build these filtration equipment, 3D printing, filtration equipment that they would use to eliminate as much of the fluoride in their water
Yeah, water
as
sanitization.
possible. Right. And when you see a lot of the people in Tanzania who have they were born with birth defects,
Yeah.
it's because of the high levels of fluoride in their water. And it gets into their bones. It unfortunately makes them handicapped.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of that you saw or dealt with when you were doing your build there, but it's prevalent, and it's especially prevalent if you look online,
Mhm.
up in the area that you were at, and in Arusha and around Mount Kilimanjaro, and is it Mount Meru, right?
Yeah, Maru, yeah.
Yeah, Meru. Okay. Um, it's the water that comes from these mountains that collects all these minerals,
Right.
and so therefore the access of water they have is not clean water.
Right.
And that was the purpose of Pure Thirst. We did fundraising projects on campus
Mhm.
so that we can send people over there to put these filtration systems into their water sources.
Right.
And then that even carried on to one of our professors at Duquesne University, Dr. David Kaler, as part of a grant that he had. I can't remember who he had the grant through, but we were able to it funded students that he can take over with him in the summer to continue, using these different types of equipment
Mhm.
that, and innovative types of these systems
Right.
to collect more of the dirty water, the minerals and the fluoride,
Yeah.
so that these people can have clean water.
Yeah. Yeah, there are many ways that we can help.
Yes. It was a total eye opener for me. Okay. I had never been to a country where I saw that this is what people had. These were their resources.
Right.
And yet I think of all the places I've been to, and you can comment on this, I would say that the people in Tanzania were probably some of the nicest people I've ever met.
Yeah, I find myself
And
a lot of places.
and very happy people too, Stacy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think sometimes I don't know if it's because our encounters are brief. I know that a lot of times the communities that we visit, there's a lot of suffering, the kind of suffering we maybe don't contend with here in the United States.
No.
But also it can be a mindset even for people who have a lot. And I think when you live in a way that you can accept the present moment for what it is and not dwell in the past or continue to fantasize about a better future that never arrives, I think,
Right, right.
life.
And yeah, you're 100% right, Stacy. And no matter where we were in Tanzania, and it was all northern Tanzania, from the coast as far west into the national parks,
Right.
to do safari and stuff like that. Um, I don't think I encountered one person who I thought, "Wow, what a jerk." And that includes the bartering, you know. I'm not good at bartering. I Michael, one of our colleagues said, "Hey, Phil, you could have done better."
I
They're
love
probably laughing right now. I said, "Michael, I really don't care." It's
yeah.
not a practice am familiar with, and a
Yes,
practice that we don't do here,
it's not really
unless
it could
people
be.
partner with each other. I don't know about it, but
I have a
but,
hard heart.
I brought back some nice paintings that I gave to my wife, that
Uh,
she has in her office, and other artifacts, and I enjoyed every single moment there, and I learned so much, not about them, the people. I learned a lot about myself,
right.
and even to this day, if I'm brushing my teeth, if I remember,
Uh-huh.
I shut the water off.
Yes.
Because water was scarce, and especially where the Spiritan Guest House is in
Uh-huh.
Arusha.
Mhm.
The water doesn't, like, just come out right away. It
Oh,
basically
huh.
dribbles out,
Yeah.
and the woman who was, like, the housekeeper there, she just reminded us, you know, if you're using the water, use as little as possible,
Right.
you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
and she was a wonderful woman. She cooked for us.
Uh-huh.
They had some other, people that worked there. They were like housekeepers.
Right.
Because I think the Spiritan guest house might sleep up to 20 some people.
Mhm.
That's where our students stayed when they were in Arusha.
Right.
So, and these towns actually have really cool setups, and it's actually fairly easy to get around.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of good restaurants. There's a lot of good things to do. I'm
Mhm.
sure you encountered that maybe when you were in Tanzania or in Uganda and some of these other, countries that you've been to that don't have what we have.
Yes, yes. Tanzania has a more well-developed tourism infrastructure, especially in and around Mount Kilimanjaro
Right.
where we were,
Mhm.
you and so, yes, no shortage of great restaurants, actually. Uganda, the area where we built, where our team went for a week was, uh, not so much. It was a lot
Okay.
more it was more rural in the sense that it was further away from larger city centers, but the town itself would not have been a place that we could have gone, left the hotel and walked to things or gone out, in the evening. So it was a
Right.
different environment. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What was I don't wanna say, I hate to say favorites because you don't wanna choose one over another sometimes, but how about most memorable as far as all the places you've been to that you've been to volunteer, to do these builds and everything?
Yeah.
Which countries, which places stand out to you, Stacy?
Oh my gosh,
I'm
Phil.
sorry to throw you that question because there's a lot
Yeah,
probably that stands out.
they do. They ask me that a lot. Well,
Right.
what right? And I tell people that these experiences, they're like your children.
Yes, yes, that's a good way to look at it.
Favorite.
Sure.
Sometimes you like things more about one than the other.
Right. Of course.
Uh, I have always enjoyed Southeast Africa, and so Malawi, Tanzania, certainly. I quite like Kenya. Um, I don't know why, but I can't explain it. When I go to those places, there's a part of me that feels very welcome. I feel very at home there.
Sure.
So I don't know, maybe that says something about. I always say part of me is African.
Mhm.
Um,
At heart, yes.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
definitely. I feel the same way for my time in Tanzania, right,
and I've
right,
traveled to every continent with the exception of Antarctica, so I don't feel quite the same way that I do in other, places, but there are so many other incredible things that I have seen and experienced, that people would consider maybe like bucket list things for travelers coming especially from North America or other, sort of well-developed, countries where traveling is easy for us, getting a passport is easy, relative to other places.
right.
I mean, India was certainly incredibly memorable because it was my first time
Sure.
out. I have like I said, I have vivid memories of some of the things that I saw people that I met. I could still remember their names, conversations that I had with them, that's going back quite a ways. Um, and then more recently, I have done trips to Europe, which when I was younger didn't really interest me because I figured, well, those Europeans, they're kind of like us.
Right.
But, I've really enjoyed traveling in Europe the last, especially 10 years. And I think it's because I appreciate how many different cultures are represented in such a small geographic area. I mean, you could drive or, just go 100 miles and be not only in a different country, but you're hearing a different language. You're tasting different foods. There are cultural norms, and all these places are so close together.
Yeah.
So,
That's what always, I think, stood out as far as studying, history when I was in college. I was a history minor.
right,
That you can be on a continent like Europe, and this is even probably before the EU and open borders there and everything,
right.
where you can be in France and you go east, you go to Belgium, and French is obviously is the main the language of in France, but in Belgium they're speaking French, they're speaking German, they're speaking
Mhm.
Flemish, um, and then you're next thing you know, you're either in Germany or you're in the Netherlands, you
Right.
know. So and you do see all these different cultures, all these different ways of life. It's not just languages, it's the foods that they eat,
Yeah.
it's the architecture, it's
It's
everything that's
the way
different.
look even,
What I'm sorry, what'd you say?
the way people look.
Sure, absolutely, for sure, yes. And then, when you take Europe and you put it next to the United States, we have our 50 states. And you can drive freely from Pittsburgh to Ohio to West Virginia to upstate New York or to the beach,
Mhm.
Um, whereas, in Europe, you got the Euro. You could be in Munich and you're taking a train to go to Paris or to
Right.
go to Italy somewhere,
Yeah.
um, or even to Eastern European countries, like in Bulgaria or up in Poland, wherever.
Yeah.
And it's just they travel over there, we travel here, except they have a great train system.
Yeah.
They have their cars.
Yeah.
So that was like I think the one thing I would say is comparable between the two, between the United States and Europe as a continent. But like you said, it's so different over there, and the people, the way they think, and the way they do things, it differs country by country.
Sure.
You know, but what about Europe? I'm a big fan of Europe. I've been there a couple times. What stands out to you in your work that you've done there? Countries, people, culture, whatever it is.
Oh, what stands out? The places where I've built houses with, the Fuller Center and Habitat for Humanity have both been in Portugal and Romania.
Okay.
The terms of, like, my volunteer work, those are the places where I was working. I quite like Romania. I've been there 3 times,
Oh, okay.
and been fortunate enough to travel to other parts of the country outside of the area where we were building,
Right.
and I've found it to be, like, amazing,
Yeah.
in ways that were unexpected. I think I didn't know what to expect. I'd never been to an Eastern European country. I don't think I'd ever visited a former communist country,
Right.
so learning about the history was really cool, traveling out into the countryside to see what some of the villages look like in
Mhm.
Romania. Encountering people that are incredibly kind and hospitable. I I I I think we can mention another thing that makes travel so maybe interesting for us as native English speakers is the fact that we can visit almost any country in the world and take for granted that we may have an easier time getting around because we've mastered the English language.
Right.
So I've really appreciated that. I don't speak any other language fluently, and yet I love and I enjoy languages, so I'm always trying to learn. words and phrases when I'm traveling somewhere, or maybe,
Yeah.
last year I spent, about 10 days in Bulgaria, and they use the Cyrillic alphabet,
Yes, they
which
do. You're right, right.
was I think that was new for me, but I just remember, after, like, a couple of days, we had a tour guide that was kinda taking us around, and I said, if I write down all the letters of your can you help me? And then I want you to teach me how to pronounce each of them," so that at least I was getting to the point where I was, like, kind of mildly obsessed, like, I'd start looking at billboards or signs, and I just wanted to be able to pronounce the word properly. It's like learning Greek, like, if you know that delta sounds like a D, then when you
Right,
see so there was kinda like that thing going on that I really enjoyed, and I enjoy that in most places that I go. Obviously, there are some countries where I think, yeah, Thailand, it's always gonna look like a bunch of squiggles. Like, I'm not thinking, um, I'm never gonna be able to say those words properly, but I I I so enjoy the differences, like, the world is so exciting,
right.
and we're
It truly
fortunate,
is. It's amazing.
enjoy it the way that we do because it's not a privilege afforded to everyone.
Yeah.
So I take that for granted as well.
Very good point. Very, very well said, Stacy. We were in England for 2 weeks back in June 2016. We did 3 days in Reykjavik as a stopover flying Icelandair
Yeah.
and did the Golden Circle tour. My next door neighbor is actually from Reykjavik, Oli, and we went to his mother's house in Reykjavik, and she
Oh,
made bread for us. And, and but it was also really no different than what we do here. Okay.
yeah.
She made, like, this baked Icelandic cod
Uh-huh.
and made it's an Icelandic yogurt. I can't remember what it's called, this dessert. I'm sorry?
Gear, I think.
Yes, yes, thank you, thank you. But Ollie's stepfather and I were outside, we were grilling lamb
Yeah.
and having a couple of beers, and it's what we do here. You have a cookout,
Yeah.
you have friends over, you're out, I'm out grilling, my buddy's with me, we're just
Yeah.
catching up. I'm
Yeah.
cooking burgers or chicken or whatever, and we grilled
Sharing.
lamb. It was a great experience, and they're well traveled. His mother and stepfather, his siblings too, and Oli himself, they're all very well traveled,
Yeah.
so, you know, the Americans are no strangers, Canadians are no strangers,
Right.
English, Irish are no strangers, but so during that trip though, what I wanted to get to was we actually spent a day in Cardiff, Wales.
Mm.
Because after we did our time in London, we stayed with good friends of ours who were there for work in Bristol, outside of Bristol, England. So, Don took days off so he can take us around, the different sites in Southern England. But we took the train from Bristol to Cardiff, and the first thing I saw, and I knew this was the case from the research I did, everything is bilingual there,
Mm.
from
Yeah.
the English language to the
Yeah.
Welsh language, because you have all these programs in place where they're preserving their native language.
Right.
It's also taking place in Ireland,
Sure.
in other parts of the UK. They're saving their languages so that they're not lost and forgotten. And and but it's weird when you see the translation in Welsh because they don't use many vowels.
Yeah.
It's mostly consonants and everything, but it's still really cool to see. That's part of the cultural experience. That
Right.
is that is part of why I travel.
Yeah.
I wanna see those types of things. I want to experience those types of things, and to see it in action, and quite frankly, you can hop online and go to BBC Sounds, and they have all their radio stations all throughout the UK. You
Right.
can listen to, um, a radio station in Northern Ireland where they're speaking Irish Gaelic.
Yeah.
They call it Irish. Actually, not even they don't even use the word Gaelic. You
No.
can listen to Welsh speaking programs that are based in Cardiff or other parts of Wales. And
Right.
then RTE, which is Ireland's main television station,
Mhm.
they do broadcasts, both radio and television, in Irish.
Yep.
So I'm intrigued by all that kind of stuff. I love it. I can't get enough of it.
Yep.
Not and you can talk about culture in every country, but it's the experience, it's what you get out of it, what you put into it actually,
Yeah.
and what you learn whenever you come back home.
Right.
That's what enriches my life. That's what enriches the experience that I want to have.
Right.
And it's those experiences that I know I will never forget.
Right.
And I'm sure that you feel the same way during your time whenever you were, in all these different countries doing all your builds, you know. So, um, what is your message to people who talk to you about what you do for a living and everything we've discussed so far in this episode? What is your message to people who are watching this, who will be watching this later on, or others that you encounter about the work that you do?
Well, I'm always inviting new people into the work, into the experience. I typically will most team leaders, if not all, have to recruit their own teams. So sometimes people might look at a website and find out about it and, they're strangers to me in the beginning, which is fun. It's fun to meet new people doing this, but I'm always looking for people uh to join a team. So that's one, if you are at all interested or you think you might be interested, let's connect. I can provide you with more information. People always have questions. My job as a team leader is to help people, help set expectations and let people know kind of what a little bit about the experience so that they know what they're in for. Help them through the process of signing up, getting prepared, making sure they need or they have everything that they need in order to participate before they get there, and then managing things with team dynamics on the ground when we're in country. Um, and I love all that. I enjoy all those aspects of my job.
Yes, yes, yeah,
Yeah. If not international travel, if not traveling somewhere with me, there are plenty of other opportunities, people who do what I do. So that is available. But, I started probably much like you, Phil, as a teenager, uh, the youth group at our church would travel every summer to Kentucky, to Boone County, Kentucky. And I have really strong memories of those trips. I might have only been 14 years old. So that's, going back a ways,
absolutely.
years. And I remember showing up and being in a very rural part of our country, not too far from where I grew up in Pittsburgh,
Mhm.
and seeing real poverty in my own country for the very first time. I mean, people
Right,
living in shacks,
right,
didn't have electricity or running water, who were living without, in uninsulated homes or I mean, I mine again, that was kinda like a very eye-opening experience, especially for a teenager, but because I was with other people my age and, there were some chaperones, but we were away from home in most cases, your parents weren't there. I learned that I enjoyed the experience of, helping others in a group.
yeah,
So, it's not a surprise to me that I like forming and being a part of a team.
mhm,
Um, and then engaging in the work and being able to connect with people who are so different from me, but to connect on a human level.
right,
I've conversations with people where that I don't speak the same language because it's more the conversation is coming from your heart. Maybe there's a translator there to help a person understand the words,
mhm,
but that's not even necessary. You
right,
know, maybe in Tanzania, if you're speaking to someone who doesn't speak English, you're kind of gesticulating and you might be asking a question or pointing to yourself and saying your name or like all these little things, that just help you to connect with other people who really at their essence are just like you. The difference.
that's exactly it, and I think when you get to the absolute root of exploring and finding, what you're looking for in your experiences of world travel, you learn that, for example, the person who was our driver in Tanzania is a gentleman named Fahad.
Mhm.
He's bilingual. His English is perfect, and Swahili is his native language. He I just asked him as soon as we got settled in our caravan that he used to drive us from Kilimanjaro Airport to Arusha. I knew right away this guy was super cool. Okay. I knew that we were gonna mesh. And I brought a Steelers flag with me that I was gonna give to somebody over there who I had the best connection with. Okay. So the first thing I asked
Uh-huh.
Todd,
Information.
I did, absolutely. And the his name was Fahad, who I mentioned, our driver. The first thing I asked him was, "Who is your favorite soccer team? Who's your favorite European soccer team?" And he said, "Manchester United." And I said, "Oh, that's a shame because Liverpool Football Club is my favorite team." And we joked with each other right away about it. And then we talked the entire time. You know, when I was back in school, I was a talker. I was a talker then. I'm a talker today, and I'll be like that the rest of my life. But so was Fahad. We had the best conversation. You know, we're just talking about life right away. It was almost like we already knew each other and hadn't seen each
Yeah,
other in 20 years.
right.
Um, but aside from Fahad just, being our driver, he's an educator as well.
Mm,
He took us on our safaris. He knew everything about the plant life. He knew
yeah,
everything about the animals. He knew
right.
everything about, the habitat within these national parks, the birds. I mean, he has a master's degree in something that's environmental related from one of the universities over there. Smart guy, fun guy, had a great time with him as well as with my colleagues. And when it was our last day before we actually left from Dar es Salaam to travel up to Amsterdam for our flights to come back home. Fahad got my Sealer flag. I gave it to him. And I have pictures of us holding the flag together, big smiles on our faces and everything. Yeah, I mean, he's Muslim and lives not too far from Arusha, married with children.
Yeah.
But seriously, this guy could be like, if we lived by each other, he'd probably be one of my best friends,
Yeah, right. Exactly.
you know. And anywhere else where we've traveled, my wife and I, or my travels I've done for work, Belize, been to Belize a few times,
Uh,
with Duquesne University. I made friends down there who I still talk to this day,
yeah,
you
sure.
know. And it's just what we said, a human being is a human being. It doesn't matter which country they live in. It doesn't matter what, their religion is. Doesn't matter what their skin color is. It doesn't matter what they eat on a daily basis, the language they speak, and what their hobbies are.
Yeah, I would say for me, I do what I do because at the core, I wanna connect with other people.
Right.
I choose to do that internationally because I have wanderlust and I just wanna go everywhere and I like experiencing new things. So
Yeah.
that really works well for me. But my
Right.
point about, when I was doing this, when I learned about poverty in a place in the United States when I was a
In
teen,
Kentucky and Boone County. Yeah.
it was many years before I would go abroad, but I continued to do things in my own community. And that also afforded me the opportunity to connect with people. So for people who might be listening and interested, I would say just choose something that you enjoy
Hmm.
and get involved. It doesn't have to be, you know, in Africa. It could be,
No, it
you
could
know,
be in South America, Central
or,
America.
or it could be down the street,
It can be down the street. That's exactly it.
Right.
It can be the next state over. There's no question about that. If you want to give back to the community and
Yeah.
be involved in these service projects, they're easy. If you look for them, they're easy to find if you
Yeah.
want to be involved. There's no question about that.
Then
Yeah,
the
that's a great point. And
well,
Stacy, I'll get your information and
okay.
it'll be on the YouTube channel, on my YouTube channel for this episode. So for
Cool.
people who may want to, get involved and become a team builder for a future build that you have set up, in 2026, you
Also,
know,
I like to plug if you are a parent or even if you're not a parent but you have young people in your life, consider taking your kids they're probably more capable than you might think they are and uh don't be afraid to take them
right,
somewhere
right.
new because I think especially young people get a lot out of these kinds of experiences.
right. I agree with that 100%. When we were in England and Iceland, in that day spent in Wales, we had Brandon with us, and he was 15.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know he loved it over there. He
Yeah.
talks about, "I wanna go back to London, dad. I love London." I said, "So
Yeah.
do I. We should go back."
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
But it wasn't just London. He loved everywhere where we went. Didn't matter if it's Stonehenge. It
Yeah.
didn't matter if it was Bristol. It didn't
Right.
matter if it was when we were at Cardiff Castle,
Yeah.
being up top of the keep, whatever it was, I mean, he loved every second of that trip,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
We
know?
traveling internationally with our kids when they were like in elementary school.
Right,
So, even back then, actually some things are even easier before they get to be teenagers.
right. Yeah, and that's how you learn. That's how kids learn. And what I'm a proponent of, and you don't really see it in the public schools or maybe in parochial schools here, is learning a language at a much earlier age.
Right. That'd be cool.
And we have Duolingo, we have Babbel, we have other learning sources where, any kid can learn any language, at such a young age. And it's kind of like, whenever you start taking piano lessons as a young kid, or no matter what you're learning as a young kid, that's when you're absorbing everything,
Yeah.
and I use Duolingo all the time for Spanish, I think I'm on a 209-day streak or something like that. I can't remember. Yeah, and I used it before and developed a streak. Then I kind of put it away. Now I'm using it again because that was a language I took in high school and I took it in college too. And I really love the Spanish language. I love
Yeah.
the Latin American culture. And that all goes back to Roberto Clemente, which will be another episode for another time. And he was two when I was two whenever he died. But it was his legacy and everything that he was about, and how he died. It was a humanitarian effort
Yeah.
in a plane that shouldn't have been flown that crashed and went into the water into the Caribbean,
Mhm.
taking a bunch of goods to the people in Nicaragua who
Mhm.
just recently had an earthquake.
Right. Right.
So, unfortunately, they used a plane they shouldn't have gotten on, and that's why he died, you
Yeah.
know. Um, but I was raised on him. I was raised on sports. I was raised on, that type of stuff. And then I found the geography and the culture and everything, not just in school, but on my own, even as a little kid.
Right. Yep.
That's why I'm into it to this day.
Yeah.
Why I became a travel agent,
Right.
because I want to send people around the world,
Yeah.
and I get excited and helping them realize, these places they're going to be going to and what they're going to get out of it, and the
Yeah.
things they can do there. And then one more thing, you were talking about the language, the Cyrillic alphabet in Bulgaria. It's ironic that you brought up Bulgaria because I love using Chat GPT for various stuff.
Mhm.
And since I'm a travel agent, I can type in, um, give me 3 days of what I can do in Sofia, Bulgaria,
Right.
you know, or other cities I can go to while I'm in Sofia, Bulgaria. And not only does it give you a very, very good itinerary, but they actually give you the phrases.
Yeah.
You type it out in Cyrillic, and then
Uh,
they give you the English pronunciation of it.
that's cool.
That's how cool this stuff is today.
Yeah. Oh,
Mm.
yeah. Tools are they're gonna change the way we communicate.
Right, right. And, I just wanted to throw that out there because it is a very, very effective tool.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, we find recipes. You know, we're
Yeah.
sick of making the same things for dinner at home, so I'll hop on ChatGPT and say, "Okay, we wanna have a casserole type dish. What should we make?" And it gives us everything. Do you have any last thoughts? Any last, types of advice that you wanna share with everybody, Stacy?
Oh my. I oh,
I mean,
I
you
would
kinda said it already, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I just wanted to give you that last opportunity here,
I
as
think if
far as
listening and they have, like, something is stirred inside of you that says, "Ooh, I'd really like to do that."
right,
I I would just make plans. I make plans all the time because I love the anticipation of knowing that something is out there, that I'm looking forward to. If something gets in the way and it doesn't happen, no big deal, but if you never make a plan, if you don't, make a decision, then you might never you might never do it.
Right.
Travel is very accessible now.
Mhm.
Uh, when you and I started traveling, I remember physically having to visit a travel agent to get a piece of paper that was an airline ticket. I remember, um, you know, learning about my itinerary because somebody sent me something in my mailbox. And, you know, we can make our own travel plans now. We can get people like you to help us make the bookings in like minutes.
Right. And that's
Uh,
what I do. And it's not even just the bookings. I can set up special travel arrangements,
yeah, yeah.
guaranteed travel arrangements,
Right, right, right.
that get people from point A to point B.
Yeah,
When if they don't use that service from a travel agent,
right.
they have to figure it out on their own how they're
Yeah.
gonna get from point A to point B. And sometimes it's not as easy in other places as it is, say, in like Madrid, Spain, or in Paris, France, or whatever, but you still have to figure it out.
You know what? I just thought of 2 more things.
Yeah.
Whew. Okay, the first thing is, while you are going to spend money to travel, unless you're working and someone else is paying for it, you do not have to spend a lot of money. I think a lot of people think travel is so expensive, I could never afford it. But when I started traveling, I was like single and just graduated college and I was broke. And
Mhm.
I figured out a way to do what I really wanted to do without a lot of money. So that's number one. You don't need to spend a lot of money.
I agree.
The other thing is don't be afraid to hire. I'm a big fan of tours and guides, partly because I love to have a local person maybe take me somewhere and talk about what I'm seeing and not have to do all the work myself. So while we can do all the work ourselves and have a great experience, I think a lot of people think I'm not going to have an authentic experience if I go on a tour or if I hire a tour guide. And I have found the opposite to be
Right.
true.
I
A
agree
lot of
with that as well.
more out of, I get more for my money because I don't know if I'm ever going to come back to this place. So, don't think like you're copping out if you use a guide or uh, some other kind of service because there's a lot of good ones out there.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And say, for example, you know, um, I've sent some clients on Viking cruises,
Right,
and for each stop, they have a free tour guide that can take them around
right.
in whichever city that they're at. And if they don't want to have that type of tour, they can hire a third party
Yeah,
and do a separate tour based on what they want to do, based on the experience they want to have.
right.
But the benefit of having a tour guide is if they take you into a cathedral that was built 500 years ago, you're going to learn the history of that cathedral. You're not going to say, "Oh, that's a pretty cathedral."
Yeah,
You're going to get the history to it. Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Museums,
yeah.
other archaeological sites,
Right,
other types of architecture in general, you're gonna learn so much, and that's part of what travel's about. And like you said, it can be done on the cheap. It doesn't have to be a 5-star hotel to stay at that's next to the Colosseum in Rome.
yeah,
You can stay in the outskirts. You can
yeah,
go off the beaten path and find much cheaper options.
yeah.
And you can rent cars in these countries, and car rentals really are not they're not that expensive over there,
And
to be honest with you.
the word hostel used to conjure up like I'm sleeping
Right.
in a room and my suitcase is going to be chained to a metal bed and that has changed. So
Mhm.
there are lots of places that have a hostel-like atmosphere. I've stayed in them with my family and they loved it. So if you see the word hostel or if you're looking at something online and you want to spend less money, try that and see what you find before you just write it all off.
Right.
Because,
Right.
a lot of hostels are offering private rooms now. They're offering experiences, food, for a fraction of what you would pay. And a lot of times they're really well located. I mean, again, it depends on the type of trip and the type of traveler that you are, but
Right.
it can be a great option.
Yep, absolutely. One more question, Stacy. Yeah, I know you've been to multiple countries, okay?
Yeah.
I think I counted on your website like 70, I'm gonna say 75.
Okay.
Okay. And I know that many of those were for your builds and other volunteer trips that you've done. Is there a place you haven't been to yet that is number one on your list?
Ooh, well, number 1,
Or
I've
top three?
go places that yeah, okay, so I'll give you a few places that I really wanna go that I haven't been, that I'd like to go in the next few years.
Okay.
Uh, Japan,
Yeah. Yes.
Antarctica.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Um, I've not been to Finland,
Mm,
and that really, interests me. I have not been yet to Ethiopia,
okay.
and let me see if there's another one that's, like, sort of hmm. Well, no, I can't think of a 5th one that would make that. I recently 2 years ago, I visited Slovenia, and
Oh,
I
nice.
fell in love with that country, and I would like to go back, so let's put that on there.
I have when I was at Duquesne, one of our students who actually had a Slovenian family background bloodline.
Yeah,
Um, we sent him to Italy to do summer research at this one site outside of Rome. He was a physics major,
o
okay, and he got to spend time in Slovenia. He went to Ljubljana
mm,
and found family there and got to spend time with them.
that's so
And
cool.
he absolutely loved it. And Ljubljana looks like a beautiful city.
It's delightful.
Right,
It
right.
yeah, I would highly recommend
And that
Slovenia.
I don't know if you remember George Tunder. He was from the class of '87. He's a
Of
dentist.
course, 'cause
Yes, George.
I went to college together.
Oh, that's right, Allegheny. Yes.
Yeah.
So, he did a motorcycle trip in Eastern Europe a few
Oh,
years ago, and part of it was Slovenia. And I remember he took pictures of Lake Bled.
yeah,
And you have that house in the middle of the lake, this like little island in Lake Bled.
yeah,
He
definitely,
had
yeah.
that experience. And I mean, I thought that's really cool that he did that.
Yeah,
And that's the kind of stuff that's why I stayed on social media all these years. I
uh,
wanted to see where people are traveling.
yeah, now I'm gonna have to send George a note.
Please do. He'll be like, "What are you talking about?" Just say, "Hey, Phil Clark saw it on Facebook a few years ago." I know I commented on it,
Yeah, yeah.
so he'll totally get a kick out of it. Well, Staci, I cannot thank you enough for this conversation, for the education that the lesson that you just gave in this episode of Phil's Place. And like I said, for those of you on who will see this on YouTube, if you want to get in touch with Staci to join her in one of the builds in a future build in whichever country they're going to end up at, make sure you get in touch with her and learn about the process of being signed up and actually going for it.
I would
You know,
love to, and I am so grateful that because of social media, you and I could have this conversation, and thank
exactly,
you
exactly.
to
Oh,
have
this was great.
I'm thrilled to
I am too. And you know what? I think we should probably do a revisit 6 months from now or whenever.
and sometime we're in the same real geographic location, we can get
I
together.
would hope so. I would
Yeah,
hope so. That would be absolutely wonderful.
yeah,
And if you bring your husband with you, he's from Baltimore, right?
he is.
So he's a Ravens fan.
Yeah,
And that's
unfortunately.
okay. But you can't see it, but I have the all black Orioles hat they wear on the road.
Oh, okay, cool.
Because I've been to Oriole Park at Camden Yards twice.
Yeah, it's a great
And
park.
the last time was about 10 years ago or so. And
Uh,
we just stayed at the Sheraton on Utah Street. My son and I went to the game, and it was so convenient. We left the hotel, walked at the corner, across the street, and then right into the center field gate. I absolutely love that ballpark. And what was really cool was Chuck Boxage was at that game. And he had seen I had posted on Facebook. I was putting pictures up. He's like, "Oh my God." I didn't get a chance to go up and see where he was sitting, you know. And I didn't want to barge in because he was in a box, but he invited me
yeah,
up. I should have taken him up on it, because Chuck was a year behind you, and his sister Ann was my grade. Um, but yeah, I should have. And Chuck, I apologize if you end up watching this, but I do love going to Baltimore. Oriole Park at Camden Yards is just phenomenal. Um, being down, what do they call that area? It's like the touristy area with the restaurants and the.
Harbor,
I'm sorry,
the inner harbor.
the Inner Harbor. Yeah, why I forgot that term, I don't know, but I am officially an art member, so I will forget things sometimes when I'm speaking. And but yeah, I mean, it's just it's a cool place. I enjoy
Well,
my
I'm due
time there.
for a visit to the Berg, Phil. So
Okay, let me know
I'll
and we will
take
do that.
sure.
Stacy, again, thank you so much. And for those of you who watch this episode, thank you for spending your time. And I hope that you got a lot, from our discussion points. Okay. You
Yes.
have
Thank
a great weekend and happy
you.
Thanksgiving.
Indeed. You as well.
Okay. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
All right.
Bye bye.
Bye.